Hello, all, and welcome to the midweek brief, which we are having at the end of this week for a change. It's NFP Day. It's a big day in the markets and a lot of news to cover. Before we proceed, please, as always, like and subscribe. On behalf of FP Markets, it means a lot to us. And also take advantage of the Traders Hub, which you can see on the screen now is eligible for all account holders. It's got fundamental analysis, technical analysis, articles to help you, videos, calculators, the list goes on. You are entitled to all of this. Please use it. As we progress to the news now, there's a lot to cover. And the first story will not surprise many people. Trump's conviction. I could talk here probably for the next 2, 3 hours solid and maybe more about this court case. I think it's very evident this is a divisive subject, which is hard for traders because we need to trade facts, as I say in every meeting. But nowadays it's very hard because we also know that people are trading with opinions. As we can see here on the screen, we've got our friend Donald Trump. Regardless of my opinion or your opinion, the way this is being perceived internationally and domestically for Americans are ready to get to their elections soon, this is not being seen as a good thing. It's pretty clear that the justice system is being weaponized. This is not good for America's image and, like I said, domestically and internationally. So this is going to be something that can grow into a big acorn. There's many avenues this can go down. Many are saying that he will face prison time. The truth is he's probably unlikely to, and it will likely be raised and appealed to the Supreme Court. And there's a very strong chance that they will throw it out. In the space of 24 hours, Trump raised over $60 billion. It's basically to help with legal fees, but it's more than enough. So he's actually going to put it towards his campaign, the campaign that he has not been doing because he's been in court. The Democrats seem to have been doing it for him. Why? Opinion polls are up. Trump has actually overtaken Biden and he's up 20 points in minorities. Why? Certain minorities, without going into detail, feel persecuted in America, and now they feel they can relate more to Trump. This is most likely going to be a big howler for the Democratic Party. Perhaps have shot themselves in the foot. We still have time. In 2 to 3 weeks' time, we have the first presidential debate. In a couple of months, in September, we have the last presidential debate. This is going to be interesting because they both have their terms that they want to bring to the table. However, it seems that the Democrats may be afraid of this more than Trump due to Biden's cognitive skills and how he can actually handle public appearances. Hence why the Democrats have come in with an unrealistic list of terms, such as microphone can only be turned on when whoever's speaking. You have a time limit for response, no audiences. It seems very much how the Democrats want to have it in their favor. Trump has turned around and said the only thing that he requires is he will follow along with all of that, but he wants Biden to take a drugs test before he goes. Sounds immature at first, but he might have a point because it's been suspected that he will be on certain medication which might hamper his performance. I see what the Republicans doing. What we're seeing here is a slagging match, fighting fire with fire, and this is likely just to intensify as we get closer to November. It's not having an immediate effect on the dollar or gold at the moment, but these are things that we start to notice early on before they become bigger issues, so we can be a step ahead. If we actually go here and we can see Biden, he's showing signs of slipping. His leads are losing. He's still got some states that are traditionally Democrat, and they will always vote Democrat regardless. We have it in the UK. They have it in France. They have it in a lot of countries. Some families, some people will always vote for the party that they were brought up, a family tradition, regardless. That is taken into consideration. What the focus will be on in America at the moment is swing states. Swing states are ones that have always been 50-50, and these are the ones that Trump and the Republicans are going to go after, and they're actually gaining in. As I said, this is election year. There's a lot of elections. Up to 4 billion people are eligible around the world. And we've had the India elections. Modi is still in charge. He's lost a little bit. So each election, he's losing a bit of popularity, but he still slightly has the majority. He's still in charge. And he's more of a conservative right wing, and international relations are not great or not bad. So really, India just faces a slight stagnation politically, economically, and domestically. So this is neither good nor bad news. It depends on if you're an Indian citizen. Of course, you will have more of an opinion than myself. South Africa are facing a situation they've not had in over 30 years. The ruling party, the ANC, which was set up by Mandela, is for the first time losing its majority. They're still the main party and they still have the main power, but now that they have to work as a coalition with other parties. Now, the problem they have in South Africa is the smaller other parties are one extreme to the other. You've got one party which is called Economic Freedom Fighters. They basically just want to take land from white farmers for repatriation purposes. And this has been conducted in a violent way. It's a subject we'll not get into. Again, it's divisive. But there are other parties that are more pro-democracy, pro-capitalism, pro-West. So the ANC are going to have to be quite select in who they actually decide to work with. If we actually go over, we can see that Mexico has elected their first ever female president. This has caused controversy because there was 38 assassinations leading up to this, assassinations of political figures, influential figures. I'm not saying it's Claudia that's done this, but a lot are saying that they did this so it could pave the way for her to come into power. She's extremely left-wing. This not seemed so good in Mexico. She's very much pro-climate change. She's a scientist. She has got an economics degree. However, she could be a surprise. She could be a wild card. I'm not Mexican. I've spoken to a few Mexican people, and the general vibe is they're a bit scared of this. So it does raise the question who voted for her. But then that raises the same question we had 4 years ago with Joe Biden. So it looks like Mexico could be going down a similar path. Time will tell, though. It's too early. More elections are coming throughout the year that you need to pay attention to. We've still got some really big ones to come. Obviously, United States. We've got the UK soon, in about a month's time. We've also got out of Taiwan, so all eyes will be on China then. We've got elections out of several European countries. France are due for elections as well. So go on the internet, go to Google and start bookmarking these election dates because they do have an effect on the market. If we go over to just general news, just a quick update on things, we can see that the Ukraine situation, the only major development in this region is that America have actually as of a few days ago, have actually approved the use of American weapons to be fired upon Russia. This is controversial. I suppose Ukraine does have a right to defend itself. However, certain countries made it very clear that you can have our weapons for defense only, not for offensive purposes. So this is not going to improve relations between Russia and America, for example. But it seems that Putin is ready to freeze the war. He mentioned this about a week ago that he'd be willing to freeze the war. My theory is, and you don't trade off my theory, but it just seems coincidental. He's on about freezing the war until the end of the year. Well, we know in November is the presidential elections. I think a lot of leaders such as Xi Jinping, Putin, are sitting back and waiting to see who becomes the next president because quite likely if Trump comes into power, they'll be able to talk more ceasefires and open up trade negotiations and things like that, whether you agree with it or not. Whereas if Biden stays in charge, it seems very likely that Putin will continue this campaign with little to no objection from the West. Vocally, they're being objective, but it's not actually having a major effect on Russian gains. One area that's not being covered so much is the Yemen situation. This should be covered more. We're seeing more ground battles going on between Yemeni government forces and the Houthi rebels here, but we're also seeing continuous strikes in international waters on British, American, and Israeli cargo vessels. Danish ones have been hit too. An Australian one suffered some damage a few weeks ago. So this is an ongoing situation that news is not covering, but if you can look at the blue areas here, most of this here was not there all but a week ago. So we're actually seeing the civil war re-emerging itself, but with the support of Western allies. So this could be a defining moment in the region. The Yemeni government has good relations with Saudi Arabia just to the north here. So this might actually bring a bit of security to the region, but it's going to have to go through some devastation first, sadly. All of this has an effect on gold, of course. What we've seen is gold ranging over the past week or so. I think what we're seeing change in the market is people are now focusing a lot more on the news. When we saw that the Iranian president was killed in a helicopter crash, we did see gold reach higher levels than ever before. Why? Naturally, people during the current times probably thought that this had something to do with the Israel-Gaza situation. Turns out it doesn't. And to be honest, looking at all the evidence that I have and analysis and articles, it does seem like it was a genuine accident and nothing seems suspicious here. That's according to what I'm seeing. Of course, I don't know the full story. However, what that tells us is that people are ready with their finger on the trigger when it comes to gold, and they're ready to trade as soon as they see something significant. With all the news that's developing at the moment, the Israel situation and Rafah, and people talking about ceasefires with Ukraine and talking about freezing the war, it could either escalate or it could get better. So people are going to sit there and keep focusing on gold. And at the moment, it's ranging, going up and down a little bit. That tells me that most people are sitting back waiting for the next big news. One thing that's happened in economic data this week, which has been interesting, I have mentioned it in previous videos, please go back and you'll know I'm speaking the truth, is that we've all been waiting for one of the G7 countries usually to start cutting interest rates. Well, we had it finally happen, and it was the Bank of Canada, which was a slight surprise. I was probably suspecting it to be the Bank of England. However, the Bank of England and the UK is just coming out of a recession, so it might have been too much pressure on them too quick. So the Bank of Canada have come out and they have actually cut the interest rates. Now Europe is doing the same. We're going to start seeing this more likely across the board. Like I said, one country does it, the other G7 countries will follow suit if they can. So this is interesting. This could be good for recovery of certain economies. Of course, this is considered good news. Today, we've got NFP. Today's biggest trading day of the month in terms of economic data. They expect it to be down slightly. It's of high importance. What's interesting about this is we had the JOLTS opening a few days ago, which told us that there was a higher number of jobs available, whereas the non-farm payrolls is telling us less people are being hired. Now, there is a delay in the information, so these timelines don't exactly match up, but it still raises the question that I've brought up in previous meetings, which is America has an immigration problem. What I mean by the problem is I'm not against immigration, but people are being unregistered. They're working for cash in hand. They're not registering taxes, social care, whatever it may be. So therefore, we're seeing a mass influx of people doing cash in hand, under the counter jobs, but we're seeing a decline in people actually going for legit registered jobs. Why? Well, JOLTS openings came out and said that we have an excess amount of jobs available for people, yet non-farm payrolls are telling us the opposite, as well as other data such as initial jobless claims, things like that. But this is just what will happen if you have a huge influx of people that come in and you can't monitor or track what they do and where they are. This is why tracking people's information is not always a bad thing, because it does help the economy. If this continues this way, America's just going to keep pumping out false information, false consensus and predictions, and traders are going to lose confidence in trading the US dollar. These are the very things that Trump said would happen. He said, if you open up the border and let too many people in, it will affect the economy and will provide false positives. He said this, it is happening. Then Biden only the other day has turned around and actually said that he will only allow a certain amount through each state and then we'll close it. So the Democratic Party are only resorting to what Republicans have been saying for years. And I'm not saying this with a smug grin. It's just, it's very evident now. It's not rocket science. So non-farm payrolls out today, unemployment rate comes out at the same time as well. Again, they relate to each other. Employment change. I like it when the employment change and the NFP come out at the same time, Canada and US dollar, because it's a very attractive pair then to have a look at is the USD CAD. So not always happens. It happens a lot, but not always. So this is a good opportunity there. We've got industrial production coming out, employment change out of the UK, unemployment rates into next week as well. We're covering the first few days. A lot of GDP out of the UK, inflation rates out of the United States. So it looks like a very much mixed bag next week, which will be covered in next week's meeting as well. As we can see here, Eurozone cuts interest rate for the first time in 5 years since before the virus situation. So again, this is seen as positive. Then naturally, we start looking at Euro USD, and pairs like that. To wrap things up, let's have a quick look at stocks. I wanted to bring up an old friend again, and it's Nvidia. Why? I'm not trying to bring to your attention too much outside of the box. It could be considered risky. I'm not telling you ever what to trade, although you can use this information for your own trading. But sometimes, especially with stocks, you need to go with the crowd a bit more. Nvidia have the market cap when it comes to AI technology. But recently, AMD, who's their rivals, not, there's not a close race in it, but they are the next in line. AMD have come out and said that they are on the verge of something revolutionary using their technology that they will announce shortly. This is likely to bring a lot of attention, and what we've seen is the price come down over the past few days and starting to turn around. Again, what is this? It's most likely pricing in. When there's a big drop and there's no, let's say, scandalous news, but they're talking about a new product, investors want the price to come down as cheap as possible, even if it's by cents or a dollar. If they do that and they buy hundreds of shares of a company, they're saving money, but their potential profit is going to be greater at the same time. This is what we could be seeing here of AMD. And with Nvidia, it took a slight decline over the past few days. This could be because of its competition regarding that news. There's a lot of stocks that you could be covering at the moment, but at the moment, AI seems to be taking a lot of the attention. So why not look into that more? As always, I thank you for your time. I hope you have a good day. Do not forget to check the NFP. Keep up to date with the news. Okay. Any questions? Anything anyone would like to know, you contact your relevant point of contact within the company, or leave a comment in the comment section. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the week. Have a good weekend. Take care.